Can y'all hear me? Okay, good. So it's 10:15 now. I will make sure that Dr. Joe Hummer here has enough time. I know he has a lot of material he wants to cover. And so without much ado, I'll hand it off to him. I'll say we're going, this session goes to 11:30, and then we'll go straight into lunch. Lunch is from 11:30 to 1. Also, if you did not sign in up front to get your PDH credits, just make sure you stop by after the session's over and sign in. Documentation will be emailed to you, as well as make sure you complete the evaluation that's provided and a hyperlink once emailed to you. But without further ado, I'll introduce it or hand off to Dr. Joe Hummer.
Thanks, Matt. So a couple of things. Thrilled to be here talking intersections. That's what I do. I have no other hobbies. That's all I do is intersections. So anytime I get to talk intersection for 75 minutes, it's a good time for me, a good day. Second thing is 75 minutes used to be the length of a lecture at NC State. So I think I remember how to do that. Wind me up and I can talk for 75 minutes. So here we go. Just like old times. For some of you, I'm still apologizing for that, right? So, third thing is, this is actually two presentations. Me on the first one here on the SAFED chart, and then second presentation is on the idea of arterial preservation, and that was supposed to be a teaming effort. Kevin Lacey and I putting that one together. Kevin was again among the bigwigs. I got called out to Ashto or somewhere, so left me holding the bag on that one. I'll try my best to represent there. So, but first of all, on the SAFED chart, and I'd be happy to take questions after this one and before we move on to the second presentation. So, and hopefully time won't be an issue here. So the title here is updated chart because I first published these charts in 2020. They circulated around for a year or so before that, but first version 2020, and what you're seeing here is the, I guess, version 2.0, or the latest version, which we just posted to the website in January, I think, a couple months ago. This is all about intersection designs. This particular picture is Greensboro, but I'm lucky enough to get to work on a lot of these, a lot like this one around the state. The prioritization process turns up a lot of intersections that we try to fix. That's great. If you were here in the room a few minutes ago, you heard about how we produce a traffic forecast for these places. Fantastic. There are several design alternatives always coming from the planning side, and then maybe from local officials or whoever got some ideas of how to fix this place. And we can certainly do modeling to estimate travel times, levels of service, and things like that through the alternatives that are there. We can see what fits right of way, and then in turn into impacts and things like that. Very important. The impact, the aspect that I was feeling like that we're missing out on, and it dovetails with what I said yesterday in the general session, is safety, right? In that kind of standard process that we had there, we kind of launched into alternative analysis and then narrowed down without a really explicit consideration of the safety of the different alternatives. So that's where I was trying to go with this idea. Happily, again, dovetailing from what I said yesterday, happily, we live in what I'm calling here the golden age of CMF. CMF is crash modification factor. There's still some seats up in front here. If y'all are standing and want to filter up to the front and grab a seat, please do that. Crash modification factor, the point is that there's been a lot of safety research in the slide says 25 years. It probably goes back further than that. Your federal government has spent hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars on that safety research. When I was faculty, I got to participate in some of that. I appreciated their assistance. And a lot of other people have done those studies too. Let's start using that knowledge, right? It's there. If you haven't been to that website, it's a superb website maintained just down the street at Chapel Hill called the Clearinghouse. Hundreds of countermeasures, treatments there. For each treatment, there's usually several different CMF. You see the little equation there for CMF. It's just a ratio of after crash to before, after frequency to before frequency. And a CMF under 1 means that whatever treatment that was installed made the situation safer, right? So you're rooting for that. A CMF over 1 means the safety got worse. The best thing about the Clearinghouse is they rate each of the CMFs, each of the studies, on a scale of 0 stars to 5 stars according to the quality of the research. So I don't have to read the whole report to know whether I can trust that number or not. Now, I'm kind of upset at my friends in Chapel Hill because they never gave me 5 stars. In fact, I threatened to rescind somebody's diploma over there. Come on. But my take on it is 3 stars or better, 3 or 4 or 5 stars is pretty trustworthy research. I'm gonna use a CMF if it fits my situation, if it gets 3 or 4 or 5 stars. And so, yeah, I don't have to read the report. That information is over there, and I can just go to the website. Now, there's some tricks to using the right search terms, and all of us in the age of Google, we know how that works. But if you get in the right place in the Clearinghouse, you can find a really nice set of CMFs that are helpful. So let's start using them, right? When that file lands on your desk and it's your job to fix Benjamin Parkway in Greensboro or whatever that hits you, go to the Clearinghouse, start scooping up CMFs and see what is safest as well as what will give you the best level of service and fit the spot and minimize cost and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what I was after here. The way I structured these charts was to think about in terms of what are the intersection designs that are feasible. In other words, that's what will handle the traffic from a capacity point of view, and also not take up the whole county for right of way. And then among the feasible designs in any particular combination, what's the design then that has the lowest CMF that will give us the best safety return? And so that's why I came up with the safest feasible intersection design. The acronym is SAFED, and I said first published in 2020, and now I'm providing a update. The update, by the way, if you saw the one from 2020, the update is we've got some new CMFs in the last 3 years, so filtered those in. Those did change things a little bit, and then more detail than the first version of the charts, a little bit more precision. Here are the CMFs, at least the ones that affect intersections, the ones that I know of anyway. Maybe there's more out there. If there are, please let me know. And what we're doing here is changing from the conventional design on the left side, two-way stop or signal, changing to one of the other designs that you see there. And then 2 different CMFs there. That's for all crashes and then for injury crashes. It's a pretty nice list, isn't it? That is that's what really struck me a few years ago. I said, I think I can put this chart together because we've got this information. The research is in the can at this point. And these are all 3-star or better. And in some cases, they're averages of several studies that have been done. And I just took a simple average if there were several available. Other thing to notice there is all the numbers are under 1. And so what that tells you is two-way stop or conventional signal is never the safest thing, right? Take that out to your public meeting, take that to your county commissioners, the subdivision residents, who's ever asking for a signal, okay, but you are asking for the thing that, as far as we know, is the least, not least safe, that's overstated. There's always something safer, all right, because all the numbers on that screen are under 1. There is a difference between all crashes and injury crashes. That's a policy decision. That's why I'm glad we have several layers of hierarchy above me to make that tough decision of what we should really use. But I'm here to say, and you'll see in a little bit, that in as far as the chart goes, that really doesn't make too much difference. That the outcome of the chart is the same for all crash or injury crash, with one exception that I'll show you. So whatever they decide at the policy level gets down to us pretty unchanged. So we have alternative, different types of intersections, and we know what they're how safe they are, and they're they are always safer than the conventional. And then here's the feasibility rules too, and these are easier. This is kind of standard capacity stuff. This is a matter of running a capacity model 1,000 times to find the boundary type of thing. The grunt work here to achieve this. The RCI limit here with this range, that was on the basis of some research that was done by ITRI, published in 2017. Some of you have used that, the so-called RCI signalization chart. So it's kind of a curving function that you'll see there. But the other numbers on the screen, hopefully not too controversial there. Always stop up toward the top there at solid until you get to 15,000 total entering per day, and then at 15,001 the thing falls off the table, right? It hits a hard limit, and the same thing with roundabouts. Whereas roundabout down here, 1-lane roundabout, that 25,000 total entering vehicle per day is about as solid as anything we do in our profession. So these should not be controversial, and you can see in most cases here they're really not difficult to apply, except for that sort of curving chart that ITRI came up with a few years ago. So that's the sort of information content behind the SAFED chart. What's feasible and what's safest, and then after that, it was a pretty simple matter of drawing the plot, and here it is. The left side, down the left side there, that's the number of through lanes on the major street, 2, 4, 6, or 8. Across the top is the number of through lanes on the minor street, 2, 4, or 6, or I guess 8 as well. And then which design is it among the ones in the set there that does produce the best safety? So it's both feasible and safest. And the highlighted here is the one exception where it does matter whether as a policy we want to use injury crashes or total crashes. There is a difference there. I'll show you that in a few slides. So right off the bat, I think we can see some patterns there. Always stop yesterday that I was so keen on. Here it is, right? It's the top of the chart. Two-lane street meets two-lane street. If you're below 15,000 entering vehicle, always stop is the safest thing we can do, period. That's it. Above 15,000, between 15,000 and 25,000, then the single lane roundabout comes in. Of course, you just multiplied your project cost by 100 to get that in place. So that's a pretty tough price to pay, but sometimes we have to pay it. Down the left side of the chart there, unsignalized RCI, reduced conflict intersection, is the dominant design. That one has a terrific safety record. Every time we analyze it in North Carolina, with North Carolina data, it gets better and better. That unsignalized RCI for those types of intersections out there. And then on this side of the chart over here, these are the big intersections. 4-lane meets 4-lane, 6-lane meets 6-lane. MUT, that stands for the median U-turn. Also called the Michigan left turn, the one I grew up with in Detroit. I knew it as a kid. All these years later, finally get to confirm, yeah, it really is the best way to move through an intersection. But now we've got the data to back up that childlike intuition. And that's it. Those four are the safest designs. It's always stop. It's one-lane roundabout. It's unsignalized RCI, and it's median U-turn. Now, there's 1,000 other things to think about doing a project, and you all know that better than I do, so you bring in those other factors, and a lot of other people have a stake in this, and so it's not the end of the story there, but it is the end of the story on safety, right? If your goal is to do the safest thing, that is what works right there. All right, some more details though. Up at the top of the chart, 2-lane street meets 2-lane street. Always stop is the dominant, highlighted in yellow up at the top there. As far as I can tell, there's a tiny little area where the minor street is something like below about 500 vehicle per day, that it's not even worth it to put in the always stop anymore on a safety benefit cost ratio that the two-way stop. We're just simply not generating enough crashes to even justify the $20,000 installation cost, right? We can, again, that's probably a policy decision made by several levels above me where exactly that benefit cost number should fall. But as far as I could tell, it's below 1,000 minor street vehicle per day anyway. So I put it at 500. And above that, always stop is for capacity. It works up to that 15,000 limit. And for safety, it is the safest thing that we can provide out there. And then again, for cost, it's the cheapest thing we can do as well. So it's simply superb. My regret on always stop is not realizing that many years ago. We sort of, I remember reading research on it back in the 90s. I was like, well, yeah, okay. And then NCDOT Carrie Simpson, if she here, gets credit from me for kind of recognizing in the 2008-9 range, and even then after she did her work, it was, oh, come on, it can't be. Yeah, it really was. So, you know, I'm late to the party, but at least, you know, I feel like I finally got there. The price we pay for always stop is 10 seconds per vehicle, right? When you take that out to a meeting somewhere and try to justify that to a skeptical public or politician or media, that is, and the question back to those people is, really, you want more crashes because you can't tolerate 10 seconds per vehicle? Really? Has it come to that? So that hopefully should put a point on that end of the debate there. Cost, like I said, 20,000 per site is our average. Benefit cost at an average site, I mentioned this yesterday, 12-1. At a site that has a high number of crashes coming in, one of the sites that the safety unit has identified, they get benefit cost ratios of like 80-1 at those sites. So it's ridiculous because the cost is so low. And I don't see any other major barrier to that type of traffic control. The so-called warrants in the METC, which, did the METC get released today? Is that anybody?
I haven't heard.
Okay.
I don't know.
Was it today or yesterday? It was supposed to,
It
right?
was supposed to come out, and they have had other comments to address, and so we just got something Monday saying we're not going to make that deadline, but it's
Okay.
going to come at some point soon.
I keep checking my news feed. It's any minute now. New METC. Let's see what it says about the always stop. But the so-called warrants, even in the old METCD, were not warrants, right? They were guidelines. They were not all that strong. Trucks, unbalanced demands, high speed, NC route, whatever else people toss in there as concerns, I say I acknowledge your concern. And do you really want to leave the two-way stop in place because of that? And we move on. Middle of the chart, two-lane street meets two-lane street. A one-lane full-size roundabout is the safest choice. The literature shows that. Again, and that's that swath there between 15,000 and 25,000 vehicle per day, total entering vehicle per day. And North Carolina is at least in the top 5 in roundabouts installed among the states. So, preaching to the converted here, roundabouts have so many advantages, and you all know that, and have been terrific in getting them in place so far. And so let's get more. Again, there's a little region on the left side of the chart there, at which, at least in my spreadsheet, I have a hard time justifying one-lane full-size roundabout that a right-in, right-out configuration. Basically, install a median on the street and make the intersection into a right-in, right-out, and send the minor street left and minor street through downstream somewhere to make a U and come back. It's certainly the safest choice. Now, there's a lot of contingencies there, but if you have a chance to do that, I think I put that limit at about 1,500 minor street vehicles, but that depends on your threshold for benefit costs. But above some minimum level on the minor street there, one lane full size roundabout looks to be the safest thing. It's expensive. It's getting more expensive. Many of you know that. Right now we're publicizing an average cost of $2 million, but I think if I was going to Vegas, I'd say, the odds are your roundabout's going to cost more than $2 million at this point, right? So, I guess we don't have to go to Vegas. We can go to Danville now and put our bet on that. If they're taking odds on the cost of a roundabout, but at some level there, the cost does become a considerable factor, of course. You might wonder about mini roundabout. Circle back a few slides on the list of CMFs. Mini roundabout was on that slide. It had a good positive CMF, not as good as full-size roundabout, as you imagine, and therefore it's dominated on this chart. But I'm toying with the idea of a page 2 here. What's the second safest thing? And a mini roundabout would show up at that level. If you can't afford the full size, then a mini roundabout still gives you safety compared to the traffic signal. So it's it's there. It's just kind of hidden. We know roundabouts are efficient for delay all day long, right? If you stay below the magic 25,000 vehicle per day cost I mentioned, and for all the other impacts that we can think of, roundabout usually scores well. I think the one that's emerged lately is maintenance or repaving is difficult, right? So there's issues. Maybe lighting we can debate. There's issues, but relatively speaking, fewer issues for this design than others. Back on the left side of the table that you saw a few slides ago, this is where a large street, a 4-lane major street, meets a 2-lane minor street. The unsignalized RCI is the safest choice, and that's down to a minor street demand of 0, as far as I can tell. There's really not a level there where the RCI doesn't make sense. And there's that curving function that ITRI came up with in their research a few years ago to sort of define the limits of when you have to signalize the RCI. RCI is a very strange design, isn't it? That it really functions better unsignalized. Try to keep it unsignalized as long as you can from a safety point of view. And at some point, though, the demands just build up, and we've got to install the signals. At that point, When we have to install the signals on the RCI, it's if you're looking for the next safest thing, you can see on this chart, it is the median U-turn, the MUT that kicks in. This is the big difference between 2020 version and 2023 version, that in 21, good new research study out of Florida with the CMF for median U-turns that we didn't have before. And that study came in with a really solid CMF that inserted median U-turn into this chart and several of the others that we really didn't have before. So kudos to them. I think that was University of Central Florida. A little bit more about the unsignalized RCI. Again, very efficient travel as far as delay goes. The cost ranges widely, and those of you who do these plans and designs, you know it's all about finding space for the bulb out, right? Where's the right of way? Do I have a wide enough median? That kind of consideration, all kinds of drainage and sight distance and things come into play there. So not to minimize the difficulty there. Ped and bike, I'm going to make the case all day long that RCI is good for ped and bike. We hear from the advocates, especially the bicyclists, what I call the spandex people show up at the public meeting, right? And they're advocating, they don't like the RCI because of the minor street movement, and they somehow overlook that the major street movement for the bicycle is superb. And if you need to be a minor street bicyclist, you can dismount and be a pedestrian, and the pedestrian movement is fine too. So I'm ready to argue that all day long, and the signalized version even better, of course. And we've got new research out there on the economic effects of RCIs. This was completed last year on the research website for a residential area or a retail area, commercial area. RCIs either have no discernible effect or maybe a slightly somewhat positive effect on home prices or amount of retail sales, things like that. So that's out there too. Moving up the chart at the level of the larger intersections. Let me put my glasses on here to see what this is. Four-lane streets meets two-lane street. Yeah, we're at slightly larger intersection. The median U-turn kicks in at that point based on that new research. Here's a picture of the interior of a median U-turn. A median U-turn works by rerouting all four of the left-turning vehicles. This is one in Kannapolis, I think, Concord. All four of the left-turn movements get to turn right, head down the main street, and then make their U and come back. So it is a different design than the RCI. I think in North Carolina we have a grand total of 3 of these in place right now, but as far as I know, we've got dozens in the planning stage because it's kicking into people recognizing that not only are these things the safest in their niche, but they're superb for pedestrian bicycle. There's no better deal for pedestrian bicycle at a major intersection than this, which gets rid of all the left turn conflicts and allows that pedestrian bicycle a two-phase signal, straight across movement with a minimum of conflict points. So that I think is, again, taken us all a while, but we're finally starting to get it. So I think we'll see a lot more median U-turns out into the future. So here's more of the charts at the bigger intersections. On the left, that's a 4-lane street meets a 4-lane street. That is the one place in the chart. Yeah, I got it there. With total crashes, the safest thing is a median U-turn. If your policy says you should pay attention to injury crashes, a 2-lane roundabout comes into play there. If you know about 2-lane roundabouts, they don't do too well for total crashes, but they are terrific for preventing injury crashes. Turns out in the 2 lanes around the circle, there are a lot of sideswipe. People change lanes and do stupid things in the circle that lead to little fender bender crashes. So depends which MOE you're interested in there, what kicks in as the safest. But then above the level where the roundabout gives up, at 45,000 total entering, and then median U-turn keeps working. So here's more about the median U-turn, little diagram to try to show you the whole thing. Superb capacity. It does have a quirk there that we all should be aware of, and we need to run a capacity model and make sure it does work, because at a higher left turn demand, you can imagine when we're sending all the left turns downstream to the U-turn crossover and to the bulb out, we're going to start to overload that one. In fact, at most of the ones I've seen, the capacity choke point is here, not at the main intersection. So check this one, make sure your left turn is not too heavy there, that crossover can actually process. But if it can, then we really should be in business. It's costly, but we're talking about the big intersections here too, so everything's costly. Again, great for pedestrian and bicycle, which should sell to a lot of our stakeholders these days. And I think I'm seeing many on the way in North Carolina. So some other designs that are in the charts, the little niches that look like they're the safest thing, right in, right out. I pointed that out there. So and we do plenty of that. Don't have to go far to see that. There's a simple median installation and maybe a pork chop type island there. So big major street meets small minor street if you're looking for the safest thing. It's all about the minor street left, isn't it? We're really trying to prevent that movement. That's the one that causes the crashes, the severe crashes. The two-lane roundabout mentioned before, we are shy about those in North Carolina because of our previous experience. Hillsborough Street. But maybe there's still a niche for that one in its place. If you are concerned about injury crashes, it's around the country anyway. It still seems to be a good device to prevent those more severe crashes. Yeah, like I said before, two-way stop or conventional signal are just almost never the safest thing. To be more precise on that, I pointed out that the two-way stop with a tiny little sliver for a very small minor street, that it probably makes sense. Oh, big caveat here I should have added. This is all for four-legged intersections. We have underway internal study to try to come up with some CMFs for three-legged intersections, and my hope is this time next year, invite me back and I'll show you the SAFED chart for three-legged. Because I think things change at three-legged. I think the roundabout is not as justified for three-legged. We get to pay the full cost and don't get the full benefit. And I think the all-way stop is probably not as good either. So we'll see when we've got the numbers there, come back with the chart for three-legged intersections, and it could be different. This is for four-legged intersections, and as far as I can tell, two-way stop control, tiny little sliver there. Of course, there's a lot of intersections, but tiny on the chart. And then as far as conventional traffic signal, looks big on the chart, but actually how many places are out there where you really want to do this? One lane in each direction with more than 25,000 total entering, it turns out to be not a very common or desirable place to be. Bottom line on this chart, we all need to work on this. The public thinks traffic signals the answer to all their intersection problems. The data show otherwise, and we need to get out there with that message that anybody advocating for a signal as a reflex, we can do better, almost always. Okay, like I said before, many reasons not to choose the SAFED, the one that comes up in the charts. One of the things you could argue is you get in the clearinghouse, you look at the data, and you say, that's CMF, that doesn't apply to my case. All right, be careful with that argument, because I'm going to come back to you and say, remember that traffic forecast that we talked about 2 hours ago in here? Why do you believe that model more than this one, right? Or the capacity model that you're going to run, why do you believe that one more than the clearinghouse CMF? Everything we do is based on a model that has error. CMF certainly does, But don't go too far with that argument without being able to argue about the error and all the other steps that lead into what lands on your desk. It is possible there's a new design that would be safer. This thing is called a through cut. If you were here with me last year, remember my presentation kind of honed in on this one. It redirects the Minor Street through movement, and I think it's terrific, and I think we're going to get a lot of these. To this point, we don't have a CMF for the through cut, but when we do, I think it'll jump up here and get in the chart and shake things up a little bit. So that if there's a newer design, if there's a hybrid, if there's a combination design, we don't have a CMF, okay. And a lot of other things that go into your final decision on the intersection for your project site. Ped and bike, talked about them a little bit. Fortunately, we have a relatively new tool to help evaluate ped and bike at intersections. It's been out a couple years now. It's called the 20 flags method. It was in NCHRP report 948. We just had a training session last week from the authors of that report on how to use the 20 flags method. I took it upon myself a couple years ago to apply the 20 flags method to all of these different designs and evaluate which of the designs is best for pedestrian and for bicycle, as well as safety and the other things. And I published those charts too, and happily those charts have a lot of overlap with the safety chart. That is, if you're choosing the safest thing, you're almost always choosing the thing that's best for pedestrian and best for bicycle as well. So here is the pedestrian chart, which I'm calling the POFID, the Pedestrian Optimum Feasible Intersection Design. As you can tell, I'm not a marketing professional. Come back in my next life, I'll come back as an influencer or something, but it's just not what I do now. But there's if you're looking for the best deal for pedestrians based on that 20 flags method, you'll see it's the same. It's always stop, it's one lane roundabout, it's median U-turn. On the far left of the chart, the unsignalized RCI goes away, so that's a bit of a difference. But otherwise, the chart is very similar to the safety chart. And then for bicyclists, the chart, again, great deal of overlap. For some odd quirk, and I've looked at this several times, the RCI does come back into play as the best deal we can make for bicyclists in this certain swath of type of intersection. I'm not conceding that argument to the bicycle people that show up, and now I've got numbers to kind of back it up. Okay, so to wrap up this presentation, a new SAFED chart to show the safest feasible intersection for any combination of major and minor, four-legged. What I would hope is that the safest thing, it becomes the default. So circling back 2 hours to when we were talking about express design, I've tried to warm into the express design procedures that those teams should always start with the safest design and then go do their thing. And then, like I said, there's many other things to think about. But if we are our website says safety is number one. If we're really serious about that, shouldn't we start out with the safest design being the default thing that we go for? And now thanks to lots of research that our government has sponsored, we kind of do know what is the safest at this point. If you advocate for a less safe design, the burden of proof should be on you. Prove why we as taxpayers, we as a DOT should choose the less safe design for any particular spot. In other words, let's flip that, the current burden of proof. That would be my choice. That would be my urge on all of us. If you're buying this, then it actually becomes a pretty simple pattern always stop, one-lane roundabout, unsignalized RCI, and median U-turn, depending on which level you are as far as demand and number of lanes. And then peds and bikes pretty much line up with the safety. So that's the message here. Got maybe time for a couple of questions before heading into the next presentation. Yes, please.
All right. Unsignalized RCI, no economic impact on retail business or residential property value.
Right.
Can you give us that source information?
Oh, yeah.
Study, or inclusion?
Yeah. Go to the research and development website and search on, I think you could search on the title of the project. It's economic effects of RCIs. Might be economic effect of super streets. I think when we started the project, we were still calling them super street. And if you have trouble finding it, email me and I will send you the report.
That was the research.
Research and development website, NCDOT, a study that we sponsored, got published about this time last year. UNC Wilmington economists conducted the study for us, and we're happy about that because UNC Wilmington does no business with us. So it was kind of sort of unbiased in that sense. Please. Truck? No, I don't. They're folded into the general chart there. I have not, in the clearinghouse, I don't think it's very often where the research teams would break out truck crashes separately, and then also truck, the sample sizes would get really small of truck crashes. So I've actually never seen that. I think within the safety unit, they've looked at truck a couple of different, for RCI and for always stop, and have seen that the trucks, I would say, don't matter, but it doesn't change the outcome. That what's safest for all vehicles is still the safest for trucks. And the question always comes back is, if somebody's out there advocating a conventional intersection because of trucks, I'm scratching my head and saying, really? Four-lane street meets two-lane street with a two-way stop control, and you got trucks coming out from the minor street, and you want to keep that stop sign? Yeah, I don't. At that point, I'm not seeing it. So, but the research answer is there really aren't separate CMFs because the sample sizes get too small. Thank you. Maybe one more. Yes, please. Mini roundabouts? Yeah, good. There is a CMF for mini roundabouts. That got published a couple of years ago. We sponsored the research. UNC Charlotte conducted it. It's on that same research website. And the answer there was I could go back to the slide, but let me try to just verbalize it. CMF was 0.8 for total crashes, 0.4 for injury crashes. So it's safer than the two-way stop intersection it replaces, but it's not as safe as always stop or full-size roundabout. So mini roundabout, to me, always comes in as the second choice. If you can't afford the full-size, or if you got too much traffic volume for the always stop, those are the really two occasions where the mini comes into play. I think we'll build a bunch of minis. I've recommended several during my work, but yeah, either because we can't afford the full size or too much traffic for the always stop. Yeah, good, thanks. I got to move on because Kevin wants me to make the whole next presentation. But several other hands. Hold your question. If we get through this presentation, hopefully there'll be time enough for the next set of slides. Yeah, please. Okay, and while Matt's queuing that up, I can give the background of this next one. Yeah, thanks. Arterial and interchange preservation. The idea, as I understand it, came out of somebody in upper management, maybe somebody who's departed NCDOT, but left us with this. And he and I both thought it was a smashing good idea. That there's a lot of places out there where we do a project on an arterial or at an interchange, and we cut a ribbon, and traffic flows smoothly for a year or two, and then the developers show up. Any developers in the room? And then developers show up and ruin our project, right? Putting developments that are too big and generate too much traffic at the wrong places, generating traffic at the wrong times. Our forecasters, if you were here a couple hours ago, tell you about how they do their work. It's heroic. I can't believe they do what they do. I can't do that job. I'm often wrong. They're always wrong. Right? But they can't foresee some of the things that our developers do to us. Or to be more precise, some of the things that the towns allow the developers to do to us. Right? Anybody here from a city or town? No. So the idea was, is there something in our project process before we cut the ribbon that we could somehow put in place to try to preserve both the safety and the efficiency of that new facility? Some safeguards, some metaphor here, guardrail, to keep our project functioning after the developers descend. So again, we're lucky to be able to do a lot of these projects. This is a CFI installation in Garner. There's hundreds like this around the state, not exactly, but interchange type project. And we're lucky that lots of people are moving to North Carolina. You can see here between 21 and 22, we came in third, a distant third to Texas and Florida. I wouldn't want to trade this problem with either of those states, but things are going well here. People are moving here. We're doing something right, so that's terrific. So that's two lucky things, but we're unlucky when those two situations collide, right? And this one happens to be up by my home in North Raleigh. This is NC 98 meets US 1, and a terrific interchange there, a single point. And almost as soon as that thing was open, somebody decided it'd be a grand idea to put an 8-phase signal just to the west on 98. I mean, come on. Why did we spend that oodles of money on a 3-phase interchange and then build a 4-phase intersection right next to it? Just hideous. So that's what we're trying to prevent, right? And a lot of other ones out there like that. Here's some other examples. Maybe you recognize these. This is 540 at Buffalo Road on the east side of Raleigh. That's Google traffic saying what's typical. In my experience, the typical is much worse than what they're showing here, but they're still showing you a good bit of red. Maybe we missed the forecast. Or maybe we should have had some of these safeguards in place to not allow so much of that development to be kind of funnel, the traffic from that new development to be funneled through our relatively new interchange. Here's a more recent example. This is I-85 in China Grove, heading from here towards Charlotte with a brand spanking new double roundabout interchange, which double roundabout interchanges, looked up the CMF, they're terrific, right? They're not so terrific when we build a 100-story tower right next to it, or something, million square feet of something's being proposed in that quadrant up there. Again, should the forecasters have seen that coming? I think they do heroic to get us the numbers that they do. In this case, this development is just going to overload this interchange within, when did we cut the ribbon on this thing? It's only been 3 years maybe? And 5 years after the ribbon's cut, we're going to have to tear up this interchange, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to target here. And not that development, I mean, we want development. So there's growth here, right? But in the right place, at the right time, in the right context. Here's another example. This is NC 55 in Apex, kind of a longer look version here. NC 55 heading toward that's US 64 going east and west across the top. You can see in 1993, I moved to town in 92, and I remember there used to be that surveying supply store up on the hill. You remember that one? Right? That's what we see in the picture. Yeah, that didn't last long, did it? Or maybe it lasted long before all of this. But by 2002, you can see we're starting to scrape dirt here and get some development in along 55. By 2006, we're starting to put in that huge shopping center on the basically southwest corner of the interchange, and then some kind of new connecting road over here that wasn't there before. And then by 2010, the damage is done. And if you drive that way now, we've created a miserable drive up and down NC 55. So those, as a disclaimer says there, those are examples known to us, Kevin and I. We think there's lots of others out there. You probably know of lots of others. That's no sanction against anybody involved in any of those projects. We did our best, or the towns or the developers, but is there a way to somehow better preserve the good qualities of those developments, safety and efficiency? And it's also not to let any other division off the hook, right? All 14 of them have examples like this out there. So let's try to preserve that safety and capacity. The TIA process does that, right? That's why it's there. That's what that law says. And we've got procedure for that. We've got a manual for that. Fantastic. But the TIA process is limited. It's one development at a time, and it's a very limited time span as well. We are, by law, we are super constrained on what we can and can't analyze and help the developer to understand in that process. And by the way, that process is only for capacity. And I moaned about that yesterday, that we should probably include safety somehow in that process, but we don't now, and probably won't for some foreseeable future. Let the developers and the local governments off the hook a little bit is they can't read our minds, right? In the case of any of these Apex or Raleigh or Wake Forest or China Grove, they weren't in on the meetings where we developed the forecast or made assumptions there. They didn't probably read the final document. If there is a final document, it's buried under the highway building somewhere. Good luck finding it, right? The assumptions we made and the decisions we made during the project process are forgotten to history. And so those developers and towns, lacking that information, they're doing the best they can with what they see on the ground right now. So the idea is some kind of new process during pre-construction, preserve the safety and capacity. And yes, like the Apex example, we are thinking out in terms of let's get us at least to the design year 20 or 30 years from now, and maybe out further than that if we can. So we hired 3 Oaks to push this idea, and they did a good job of doing that. And this presentation is basically based on their report to us of what they thought we could put in place to help this work. If you want a copy of that report, I'm happy to provide that. Send me an email. They actually, it's 2 documents. It's a report and then a procedures manual or something, more of a step-by-step that they were recommending. So they recommended an arterial preservation program, and that's the right thing to do with a big bureaucracy like ours. Nothing happens until it gets institutionalized. The big point here is a shared vision between NCDOT and the local government. A shared vision of this project and an agreement about what this project is and how we can go forward and preserve it, or what would sort of muck it up too. That shared vision, we put that on paper, and hopefully when a developer comes along, we provide that piece of paper to them. Here's what we expect out of this corridor. Complements the TIA process, doesn't replace it. If there's corridor plans underway, enhances those, fantastic. Same thing with long-range plans. A voluntary program, a flexible program, and Kevin added the last bullet there, where nobody's proposing to buy anything or physically preserve anything, or let's not go back down that road again of MAP Act and lawsuits and settlements. Not going there. But what we do have in mind is for a select few projects of the hundreds that we do every year. This would be measured in the dozens maybe, or 8 or 10, where we see that heightened risk to safety or operations out in the future. Where somebody on the project team or somebody in the local government says, hey, we got a chance to mess this up. If we allow that 100-story tower right next to the interchange, that would be a bad place for it. We got a chance to mess it up. Let's not do that. Arterials and interchanges, significant investments. I don't know, Three Oaks didn't propose a threshold, $30 million, $50 million project. We're not talking about the $3 million single roundabout project here, right? So these are the bigger investments. Foreseeable development. This is NC 42 in Johnston County. My hunch is NC 42 is going to develop, right? If this project we're talking about in 6 counties away from Raleigh, in an area with declining population, we probably don't need to worry about this too much. So foreseeable development, and then particular vulnerabilities as well. And Three Oaks helped us understand some of those. One of the places the vulnerability could be is where we're already at the margin, right? Where the forecasted volume is really, and Chris Warner asked a question at the end of the last session that really got at this point, right? When the forecast puts you right at the level of service EDAF boundary, right? We ought to know that. We ought to convey that to the town and through the town to the developers. Where there could be a change in development pattern, where the forecasters thought there was going to be residential, and then somebody comes in with multifamily, right? So when there's an upgrade. Back into the realm I deal in, intersections, I'm looking for this kind of thing, right? This is the new 840 outside of Greensboro. Somebody's going to get in mind there to poke a fourth leg in that place. That is a huge vulnerability. I would want to start running this process anywhere I see that out there. That analysis was probably done based on that we're going to have a 3-legged intersection and a 3-phase signal, and if somebody gets a bright idea to put a fourth leg in there, that could mess things up, right? That's a vulnerable spot. We should be looking out for places like that. Unforeseen access points. That could be more access points. That could be bigger ones. Design features that are nearing capacity. That's the roundabout case, right? In my previous presentation, roundabouts have hard limits, 25,000, 45,000, and they die at that point, right? That's another one that goes right off the table. They lock up. They get gridlock. And this is US 74 through Gastonia, where there's no other route, right? There's only 2 bridges across the river. It's I-85 and it's US 74, and that's it. And so that is another particularly vulnerable point for us. There's not redundancy in the network. We ought to recognize that and somehow preserve the capacity on that route. So those are a few of the ones. If we had time, we're kind of running a little late here. I was going to see if y'all had other ideas for other these kind of vulnerabilities out there. Let's hold that thought for just a couple minutes, but maybe get back to it. So the steps in the so-called process, it's a very loose one. The project team or the division recognizes, hey, we could be vulnerable here. This thing, we're right, like I said, those previous bullets, we're right on the edge. We got a roundabout, we got three-leg, we got, what's some other ones that identify big schools that have funny traffic generation patterns. We feel vulnerable in this project. Something could tip us over the edge. The project team or division recognizes and initiates. Sends it to some central unit, yet to be identified. It won't be my unit. Some central unit will manage the process, that is, actually write the agreement, interview all the parties, and then run any analysis that needs to be done. That is, probably hire a consultant to do that. I think this should be quantitative when we can, exactly how many trips until we're over the limit there and things aren't working anymore. Input from a lot of different people as we go to write that interagency agreement. You can see some of the parties listed there, but it's basically asking everybody that key question of where are we vulnerable after we cut the ribbon at this place. The primary product is that agreement, a piece of paper that lays those out. It establishes that shared vision, documents the assumptions we made that went into our forecasts and our traffic model, and et cetera. Unclear yet whether that it needs to be formally signed by everybody or whether that can be just something that in an exchange of emails, the town agrees, the DOT agrees, division engineer or some authority for us, and then we're okay. And not intended to stifle development, right? We want the 100-story tower. We just want it in the right place. Some places we can tolerate that, and some places we can't. Let's help them understand where would be a good place for that 100-story tower. The key thing that Three Oaks thought of, we agree, is that when this agreement is drafted and everybody agrees to it, that it's accessible, that it's known. It's on the town's website, it's on our website, there's a GIS layer, Atlas or wherever, and everybody can find it. And when somebody does go to develop or think about developing, they come across this thing and it guides them. That's the ideal, isn't it? We want to guide the developers to do the right thing and put in a development that enhances our project and doesn't fight against it. So yeah, from the developer point of view or the town point of view, we want them to ask, is there an agreement? If so, what does it say? Is it qualitative or quantitative? If it's quantitative, let's go check the metrics. If it's qualitative, let's ask the questions. Hopefully the development helps, enhances that agreement, and gets us to a interchange or a arterial that we all want. Maybe conditions have changed. The IA that we drew up during the project development process is really no longer relevant because, well, we got 6 other 100-story towers anyway, so what difference does a 7th one make, right? But if we do have an agreement, there are vulnerabilities, and a developer comes in and is violating those, then still the stick we have is the TIA process, right? And then it's up to the district engineer with advice from a lot of other people to kind of draw the line there and say, no, help us not mess up our project that we just cut the ribbon on. So we still have that process there to help us, to help everybody do the right thing. So the current status, like I said, there's a report and a handbook, and if you want a copy of that, I'm happy to send that out to you. We need to further develop this concept. If somebody's on a project team wants to try it tomorrow, we're happy to advise you, help you do that to the extent that we can with these materials and what Kevin and I know, but probably needs a little bit more kick of the tires. And the thing that I would really like to do next is to run an example. Find one out there and probably hire a consultant to run through that and draft up an agreement and get that vetted by local government, by division, by MPO, by everybody involved. And just what does that document look like, and how seriously are people taking this? So, all right, that's the idea on that. I hope you see the potential on it. It's in the works. Hopefully it continues. If you see a way to help it, let me know. And for sure, if you're on a project team and you want to give it a try, you see a vulnerability in your project, we're certainly in the lookout for those too. Let me know that too. That's my grandson. He's fixing traffic in his way. Let's go fix traffic in our way. Contact Kevin and I with any questions about any of this or comments or help that you can provide. And like I said, besides him, intersections are what I do. So happy to talk anytime. All right, thanks. And we got a few minutes for question. Okay. Yeah. We'll leave a minute for Matt. And we had some questions at the end of the last presentation that I kind of cut some people off too. So yes, please.
So you mentioned before that a lot of the research was for 4-leg intersections.
Yeah.
Did they take into consideration the skew, the way the line road crosses into it?
Yep, great point. There is a CMF for skew. So that's out there. If you're interested in that, I think that's actually in the Highway Safety Manual as well as the Clearinghouse. Some designs work better for skew than others. And at some point here, this becomes on us and our judgment about whether that CMF really applies or not. For instance, RCI gets better with the skew, and roundabout, not so much. So we need to know that and apply that to our particular locations out there. So like all of our models, CMF is a blunt instrument and not a black box. We need judgment to apply it well. Yeah, great. Thank you. Please.
So you mentioned coming out with the CMS for 3-leg intersections.
Yeah.
Has there been any consideration given to intersections with like more than 4, like a 5 or 6?
Oh, 5 and 6-leg intersection. Yeah. Almost impossible, I would say. At the current level of the research that we have, CMFs depend on large sample sizes of crashes, actually, not sites, but crashes. But 5 and 6-leg intersections, there just aren't enough of them out there. And most of the ones that remain are actually in place because they're actually okay. If there were problems, they would have been fixed a while ago. So that there tend not to be too many crash out there. So probably somebody's tried to fit a model. I have to search the literature to see that. But as far as I know, no good CMF and not really a prospect for one. I had hopes for many years that we would continue to develop the SASAM model. That was when you run Transmodeler or VSIM, a microscopic traffic model. At the end of that, you can push another button. It'll spit out a safety surrogate, an expected number of traffic conflicts. And you could still do that with a 5-legged or 6-legged intersection run SASAM that still is out there. But I think the professional opinion has landed that SASAM is still really not a very satisfying substitute for real crash data. Hold out for the real thing. So, yeah, can't help much on those. Thanks. Good. Other question, comment, please.
Just a question. Yesterday you mentioned that we are number 2 in a good report.
Yes.
But we are not good in the safety.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what state is doing better in safety and what they are doing differently than we do?
Yeah, good. So the question, if you didn't hear it in the back, was overall, North Carolina highway system is number 2 in the country according to the latest ratings, but we are far from number 2, and as far as fatality rate, we're like 38th or something. That is the weakest area, as far as I could tell, by far of of anything. And so the question was, what other state is doing better, and what are they doing better? And the one that I point to is right across the border in Virginia, right? That a very similar state, size, terrain. They've got the bigger metro area, of course, Northern Virginia, than we do. But a lot of their state looks like a lot of North Carolina, and they kick our butts in that measure. Their number of fatalities is almost like half of ours, 60% of ours, something like that. It's really a profound difference, and that's why they came out number one in the latest rankings, and the one we should aspire to. What they do different, what they do better is, of course, it helps that a lot of their people take other modes on their trips. The Northern Virginia experience, taking transit or walking to work and such helps. But I think, and I still teach workshops up in Virginia. I correspond with those folks a good bit. I think they've just been generally more aggressive on safety than we have across a lot of dimensions. And that's the sort of education enforcement side of things, my perception. That's a safety program, the sort of HSIP and those kind of things. And then within their projects, that it's just embedded a little bit better on that side. I don't have a better answer for that. If somebody else does, let me know. But a comparable state that just wipes the floor with us on safety, and we should aspire to do what they do in that dimension. Every other way, as far as I can tell, we're really comparable. We're 1 and 2 in the country, but that dimension, they have us for lunch. Good. Other question? Please, yes.
I do have a question with regards to roundabout. When they first installed one around my neck was wax, so they had to put up a sign explaining how to use it.
Yeah.
Has that been taken into consideration that maybe people are unfamiliar how to use a roundabout in terms of crashes?
Yeah, that's a great question. How to get people familiar, or do we take that into account? The CMF accounts for that, right? That's baked in. Now, usually when we do that research, we throw out the crashes from the first few months or the first year maybe of the operation while people are breaking in new design. That's a custom in the safety research. But and the same goes for RCIs or CFI or whatever funky new design you're putting out there that people aren't understanding it. But in the case, always stop, roundabout, RCI, it's all the same. They fail safely. If somebody messes up, the chances are we're not going to get a high-speed crash that results in a bad outcome. Are we done? We've got one more. Michael.
Just a side comment.
Yep.
The driver's manual just had, within the last 2 years, had about a page and a half about how to drive roundabouts and how they function. So that's something that's been added to the driver's manual recently.
Yep, thanks. Good, and that hopefully helps. Yep. Okay, thanks. You endured the 75 minutes from me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Hummer. And before y'all leave, hold on. I know Matt Clark, I'll hand off to him. He wants to do a blessing before lunch, but also sign in for PDHs before you leave as well.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm going to bless the food, and then we can go to the main room to eat. And then dessert is in the unit room again like yesterday. So let's pray. Father, I'm thankful that we can be here today, Lord, and be able to focus on how we can continue to keep others safe, Lord, and the activities that we partake in each day, Lord, as professionals. Lord, I pray that you'll bless the food that's before us. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to be together with friends and, Lord, to be able to do things that we enjoy in such a way. Lord, I pray that you keep us safe, and we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks. You are dismissed.